Welcome back. In the last few lectures we discussed about normal modal propositional logic, which is considered to be an extension of classical logic with two elliptic modalities. It is necessary that P and it is possible that P, and we have seen syntax and semantics with respect to various modal logical systems K, T, D, S4, S5, etc. And then we have seen how to show the validity of a given modal logical formula by using one of the important decision procedure methods which has occupied the central position in this course, that is semantic tableaux method. So now we will be talking about one of the important applications of modal logic, that is the analysis of conditional statements. So conditional statements, those statements which consist of an antecedent and a consequent, and these are all of the form if P then Q. Why modal logic is used in analyzing these various kinds of conditional sentences. Conditional logic, it has become one of the important branches of philosophical logic these days. It is widely studied by many philosophers and it has been analysis of conditionals has always been the problem right from Greek period onwards. The conditional logic, logic of conditionals, is concerned with logical and semantic properties of certain classes of sentences that occur in our natural language. So what are these conditional sentences? They all have a specific structure. It has if P then Q, where P is considered to be the antecedent of the conditional and Q is considered to be the consequent of the conditional. For example, let us begin with some examples. If it is a square, then it is a rectangle. It's a hypothetical kind of thing. If something is the case, then something is the case. So then it is a rectangle. If you strike a match, and it will light. If it is raining, then we will take a taxi. These are of they are used in some kind of sense. These are called indicative conditionals. Whereas the fourth one, if you had struck the match, it would have lit. That means you didn't strike the match, but imagining a situation where you had struck the match, then obviously it would light. And the fifth example, if I were feeling warm, I would remove my jacket. I am not feeling warm, that's why I am not removing my jacket. In case if it is a case that I am feeling warm, then I would remove my jacket. So these two are different types of conditionals. Now the fundamental problem that philosophers are trying to address is that is there any difference between the first three conditionals and fourth and fifth conditions that I was talking about. So the first three conditions are indicative conditionals, and fourth and fifth are considered to be counterfactuals or subjunctive conditionals. So counterfactuals are considered to be one specific type of subjunctive conditional where the antecedent is always false. Conditionals will also occur even if you don't find any if P then Q kind of things. For example, in this example, when I find a good man, I will praise him. There is no if and there is no then, but still it is treated as a conditional sentence. So this needs to be read as if I find a good man, then I will praise him. Sometimes you intentionally or deliberately remove if and then. In the same way, if you say you will need my number should you ever wish to call me, or there are some kind of shortened form of conditionals like no Hitler, no atomic bomb. So now what is that we are trying to do is that we are trying to analyze the conditional statements using the knowledge that we already have, that is the possible world semantics that we have seen in the case of normal modal logic. And it cannot be ignored that conditionals play an important role in mathematical discourse and practical and even in causal reasoning, and all these things cannot be ignored. So usually when you talk about a conditional sentence, it expresses some kind of a hypothetical situation and it expresses some kind of necessary and sufficient conditions. So in any given conditional, if P then Q, P is considered to be antecedent, and there is a old I think Latin word for the antecedent, that is protasis, and Q stands for consequent, and there is some kind of relationship between P and Q, where P is considered to be the antecedent and Q is considered to be the consequent. So there are three different views in analyzing the conditional statements. I am not talking a specific kind of conditional, but any conditional which begins with any conditional which has a specific form if P then Q. So there are three views. Conditionals are analyzed as truth functional binary connectives like material implication. You can express in terms of the semantics of material implication, where you have this thing. If you have in the material implication P implies Q, these are the things that we have, TF and TF. So it is going to be false only in this case. In all other cases it is going to be T. There are three ways of analyzing the conditional sentences. Conditionals are treated as truth functional binary connectives. That means you are analyzing conditional in terms of if material implication, and the semantics of material implication is that whenever you have this is the antecedent and this is the consequent, the material implication is going to be false only when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, whereas in all other cases, as you are observing, all the other cases it is true even if the antecedent is false. So now these are the two cases which is of interest to us. Whenever the antecedent is false, irrespective of the consequent, whether it is true or false, it is going to be T only. That means true. That is one way of analyzing the conditional statements. If you analyze the conditional statement with respect to the material implication, then there are some kind of conditional sentences like if I had dropped this chalk piece, it would have fallen on the ground, is going to be true. In this case the antecedent is false. I had not dropped this chalk piece, it is still in my hands. And on the other hand, there is going to be another counterfactual, we can construct it like if I had dropped this chalk piece, it would have flown into the air, or it would have turned into a donkey or cat or something like that. So the second kind of conditional sentence is not acceptable to us, whereas the first conditional, like if I had dropped the chalk piece, it would have fallen on the ground, seems to be okay for us. So that is one thing. It's difficult. It's not. We can analyze the conditional sentences with the help of material implication in a limited sense. Now, the second view is that conditionals are treated as non-truth functional, but are made truth conditional binary connectives, and this is the approach which is followed by Stalnaker and Lewis from his seminal paper on conditionals. And David Lewis extensively worked in the area of counterfactuals. And there is a third view which we are not going to talk about at least in this lecture. So that is conditionals are treated as non-truth conditional binary connectives, and this is the view taken by another logician, Dorothy Edgington. So now coming back to the issue of conditional sentences, they all are having a structure if P then Q, where there is some kind of relationship between the antecedent and the consequent. Now these are the two different types of conditionals that we commonly come across in our day-to-day discourse. The first one is an indicative conditionals, because it has indicative mood present in the sentence. If Godse did not kill Gandhiji, someone else did, assuming that this is the first sentence. Now its corresponding subjunctive conditional is, or counterfactual conditional is this: if Godse had not killed Gandhiji, someone else would have. So when philosophers are asked to talk about the truth conditions for these two conditional sentences, there were various points of view. Some philosophers are of the view that indicative and subjunctive conditionals will have different truth conditions. So whatever it is, it's a highly debatable kind of issue, whether they have the same kind of truth conditions or different kind of truth conditions. That we will postpone it for a while. But if you observe the first sentence, statement number 1, our sentence is true given that some kind of historical facts about how Gandhiji's death took place. It's not difficult for us to believe believe or accept the first conditional sentence to be the case, because it just follows material implication. So in the material implication, it's going to be false only when the antecedent is true and the consequent is false, then the whole conditional is going to be false. In all other cases, it's going to be true. It's not so easy when it comes to subjunctive conditionals or some specific kind of subjunctive conditions which are called counterfactuals, where the antecedent is always false. If Godse had not killed Gandhiji, someone else would have. So imagining a situation that you are gone back and then in the past, and then you are trying to analyze this particular kind of conditional. So now the second sentence is going to be true under various other kinds of assumptions, and these assumptions are this, that Godse did kill Gandhiji only provided, if you have some kind of some theories, conspiracy theories which are floating around. So all these assumptions which are taken into consideration and put it into some kind of perspective, then you will be able to analyze whether this conditional holds or not. So the mere fact that the antecedent is false, as God said did shoot Gandhiji, does not by itself make this particular kind of sentence true. That means they have different truth conditions. There is extensive kind of research which is going on in this direction, that how to analyze these counterfactual statements. David Lewis has come up with his own view, that is analyzing the counterfactuals using possible world semantics. He views subjective conditionals as variably strict conditionals. So that is what we are going to see later. That is what we are going to see in the works of David Lewis. So what are these indicative and subjunctive conditionals? Indicative conditionals are having indicative antecedent and indicative consequent, like if Sita is rich, then she is happy. If Sita becomes rich, and she will be happy. Whereas in the case of subjunctive conditionals, we have subjunctive past in the antecedent and subjunctive would in the consequent. If Sita were rich, she would be happy. Sita is not rich at this moment, but if she were rich, then she would be happy. Imagining a possible world in which Sita is rich, she would be happy there. If Sita had been rich, she would have been happy. So we are trying to analyze this conditional sentences using possible worlds semantics. So because the conditional can be true only if you are trying to analyze the conditional sentences, you need to fix the antecedent, and corresponding to the antecedent we have some kind of possible worlds. In those possible worlds, whether the consequent is true or not is the one which we are trying to see. These are some of the things that basic things that we need. Tautology is considered to be a logical truth. Under all interpretations, the value of phi is going to be true. For all and logical consequences is that anything which is phi is considered to be logical consequence of a set of formulas if and only if every assignment of truth value that makes all the formulas gamma true, that also makes phi true. So that means gamma is going to make this phi true, or phi is a logical consequence of gamma, or gamma entails phi. There are different ways of reading the same thing, and this is the one which the basic things which we have discussed in the beginning of this course. So now when we try to analyze the conditional sentences by using material implication, there seems to be some kind of good validities like modus ponens, modus tollens, etc. And import, export, simplification of disjunctive antecedent, etc. But when this seems to be the most important things that we require, whereas when it comes to some other type of inferences like that we are calling it bad validities, bad not in the bad sense, but not in the sense of they are really bad, it is subjective kind of things. So these are the things that leads to paradoxes of material implication. Paradox of material implication is this, that a true proposition is implied by any strange kind of proposition, and a false proposition implies anything. If this is the case, then all the tautologies should may come from strange kind of sentences, or even a contingent kind of sentence, which we don't want. It is undesirable kind of thing, that is why they are considered to be bad validities. So when you come up with semantics of conditional sentences, we need to ensure that good validities should be part and parcel of our logical system, like modus ponens, modus tollens, etc. And bad validities like paradox of material implication, law of contraposition, law of transitivity, antecedent strengthening, etc. All these things should not come as theorems in our conditional logic. So there are certain kinds of validities in classical logic, but when it comes to ordinary day-to-day conditionals, it does not make any sense. For example, if you take antecedent strengthening, A implies B implies, if you add another statement to it, C, you still derive the same kind of conclusions, that is B. Suppose in the real life example, suppose if you take this example as if there is sugar in the coffee, it would be tasty, it is tasty, and A and C stands for if there is a sugar in the coffee and there is a kerosene in the coffee, then it would be tasty. So nobody will be in a position to accept, although it is considered to be a good validity, but it is giving us counterintuitive kind of results. Same is the case with transitivity and contraposition. So now the paradox of material implication is the one which is C.I. Lewis has begun with showed dissatisfaction to this material implication, and he has come up with strict implication, and we have seen how he has come up with various logical system in order to address the problem with respect to material implication. So he is of the view that material implication does not capture the process of deduction. When you say that something is deduced from something, it is not captured by the material implication, it should be captured by strict implication. So there are some instances of paradox of implication, material implication, which can be expressed in with the help of some kind of sentences, natural language sentences. It is like this: X will teach his class at 12 a.m. Suppose if X met with an accident, then X will teach his class at 12 a.m. It is not possible. So it does not make any sense to talk about P implies Q implies P. That means B should be implied by any strange kind of proposition. Strange kind of proposition is X met with an accident. Or suppose if you say that X missed the only train to Haridwar this morning and had to stay in Kanpur, so John was in Haridwar this morning, so X missed the only train to Haridwar this morning and had to stay in Kanpur. So the idea here is that we do not want a strange proposition to be implied by, so a true proposition is implied by any strange kind of proposition. These are some of the examples of contraposition, strengthening and transitivity. For example, in the case of contraposition fails in the case of conditional sentences when it is applied in day-to-day discourse. It is like this: if Goethe had lived past 1832, he would not be alive today. Therefore, the contraposition is A implies B implies not B implies not A. Therefore, if Goethe was alive today, he would not have lived past 1832. This is not acceptable to us. The second example is the one which I already discussed. Now transitivity is like this: if I quit my job, I won't be able to afford my rent of my apartment because I don't have money to afford my rent of my apartment. And the second statement is, if I win $1 million or something like that in lottery or something like that, I will quit my job. I don't have to do any job, so I will quit my job. So it is like A implies B and B implies C. So that means if I win $1 million in the lottery, then I won't be able to afford my apartment. It is not possible. A implies B, B implies C, A implies C is the case, but when it is applied to day-to-day conditionals and day-to-day discourse, particularly in natural language sentences like this, we have this counterintuitive results, like even if I have millions of dollars in my hand, but I won't be able to afford my apartment. The negation of the conditional is like this: if it is not true that if God exists, criminals will go to heaven. So there is a equality which is there in this one. Not of A implies B is same as A implies not B. So hence God exists and the criminals won't go to heaven. So we are going to see in the next class, we are going to see how the material implication leads to some kind of problems, and then which leads us to think about a different kind of connective, which is in between material implication. Material implication is considered to be too weak, whereas strict implication is considered to be too strong, and we need to have another kind of connective, that is what we are calling it as conditional kind of connective. So basically what we are trying to do is that we started with classical logic and we extended with two modal operators. These are considered to be elliptic modal operators. So now in addition to these things, this is considered to be normal modal logic. Basically we talked about propositional logic, which can be extended to predicate logic also. And then the extra thing that we are talking about is this conditional connective. Now we are going to study about how this conditional connective behaves. Definitely it is not material implication will not work, and even the strict implication also will not work for us. So we need to have a different kind of connective, and then we are trying to see the logic of these conditional statements. Another important thing which you need to note is that necessity of any proposition can be expressed in terms of this conditional connective like this, not A implies A, and possibility of A is expressed as, it is not the case that A implies not A. So in the next class we are going to talk about we are going to start with two simple modal logical systems with respect to conditionals. They are C and C plus, and then gradually we move on to S1, C1 and C2. C1 is due to David-Lewis, and C2 is due to Stalnaker. There are some minor differences between C1 and C2. All these things we are going to see in the next class. Thank you.